My name's Brennan. I'm one of the co-founders of Procera African Juniper Gin, the first gin made with African juniper in the world. So the distillery is in Nairobi, Kenya. It's 1,700 meters above sea level, about 10 minutes drive on the way into Nairobi, in a lovely sort of field. We've got lots of birds and lots of botanicals growing in the garden around the distillery. It's a really magical little place. So Procera was founded with a vision to bring the very best of Africa to the world. Thought it was just a bit ridiculous that we send all these African botanicals to London for guys to distill them, to send them back to us and for us to pay a massive premium. And that set us on the journey. Here we are almost 5 years later and it's been a wild ride so far. Juniperus Procera is what makes Procera Gin, and that's why it's everything from the dot on the bottle, which represents it, to the name of the gin itself. Our juniper is the only juniper used in gin that grows on the equator. It grows at 2,200 meters near the distillery in a place called Kijabe. It's 28 degrees year-round on the equator at altitude, so you don't just get 3 or 4 months of summer, you get 12 months of summer every year, and you get a flavor that's really just incomparable. So we harvest the juniper berries ourselves, and what that means is we get access to them green, unlike almost no other distillery in the world who all distill dried juniper. We want to bring African juniper to the forefront of world gin and to really show people that you can use a different species to make gin and it can be rich and beautiful, earthy and natural, fresh juniper, not dried juniper like almost all other gins in the world. Gin's always been made with dried juniper for 300 years because that's how it's been made. The best analogy I can think of is that wine is made with grapes. People don't make wine with sultanas or raisins. It'd be silly if they did, right? Gin has been made with the equivalent of raisins and sultanas for 300 years, but we are the first people to actively promote and to collect juniper and use it green, definitely in Africa and one of the few around the world. If you make gin with the equivalent of grapes, you get the freshness, the brightness of the terroir, the soil, the sun of that area. The terroir that really should speak and be the dominant flavor in that product. If you dry those juniper berries, you're taking out the soul. That's not water, that's the essence of what the plant's grown with. It's its heart, it's the core of what it is. So we're hopeful that this will really become something that not only us, but a lot of people do, and you'll see a shelf of gin, and there'll be fresh juniper gin will be a category which will be premium and stand out because it really represents the flavor of the place it comes from. We're really proud of the bottle and also its simplicity. The glass is made from recycled glass by a company called Kitengela Hot Glass, 70 kilometers from the distillery. These are all hand blown, they're all different. They're all individually engraved. This is number 9,204. That's the 9,000th bottle we've made ever in the world. And we didn't want to have a label on it, you know. We felt the label would hide the beauty of the bottle. We didn't want to hide the amazing craftsmanship. Obviously there's a negative that maybe people don't quite know exactly what it is initially, but we hope that adds a bit of an allure or a bit of an enigma to the product and the liquid inside. And gin, once again, for 300 years has been made in a specific way. So that's really something fundamental that our master distiller, who's a genius, Roger Jorgensen, really the godfather of craft distilling, changed single-handedly. He calls it his pillowcase technique because the first time he ever did this, he literally used his pillowcase. So we grind up all the botanicals extremely finely. We probably use 2 or 3 times as much as anyone else. And then they go into the spirit base. And then we warm that up, not to boiling, but to 40 degrees. What that does, that warm maceration extracts all of the flavors, but it doesn't cook or burn anything. And that's why when hopefully you'll try Procera, you'll get a creamy richness from the green juniper, which you can't get from dried juniper, but you'll also get all those flavors which have intentionally been placed there on your palate, and you get something which is we're really proud of, making waves in the gin world, coming from a country that never had a distillery and a continent that doesn't have a huge history of distilling. Sometimes you need to go somewhere without a tradition to break the rules of tradition that you never had, and Roger's a genius who's been able to do this and prove that successfully. If you had to say one drink to make with Procera, it would be an extra dry martini with a twist of lemon. That's our sort of serve that we think this is perfect in. We're very proud that Alessandro Palazzi at Duke's says on social media and out loud that if he could take one gin to a desert island to make a martini, it would be Procera. This is our gin recipe in physical form. So the same mash bill that goes into the gin mix, that's here. So 80-90% juniper, everything except for the Somali honey, which obviously wouldn't work in that. And you basically just put a pinch of that in your gin and tonic as a garnish. So it makes a long drink like a gin and tonic more dominant like a martini. But obviously we can't always be drinking martinis, unfortunately, all day long. So it get a bit dangerous.